Hello again, I'm Rodney Reynolds and welcome to another video review. Today I'm looking at the Tuniq Ripper 1000 watt power supply. What's included is the user's manual, 2 serial ATA extension leads, 2 4-pin Mullix extension lead adapters, cable ties, 4 screws, a power cord, and the power supply. The Ripper line of power supplies are currently available in 3 models, 850 watt, 1000 watt, and 1200 watt. I will be reviewing the 1000 watt model, which is more than enough power even for hardcore computer systems. Now, how is this wattage determined? Well, to understand that, you need to know what rails are. Rails are basically well-regulated transformers which convert domestic current into the voltages that your computer system can use, and there are essentially 2 different rails, the 3.3/5 volt rail and the 12 volt rail. In this particular case, the approximate maximum peak output of the 3.3/5 volt rail is 180 watts, and the 12 volt is 900 watts, which is essentially how the wattage of this power supply is determined. The 3.3/5 volt rail is responsible for the motherboard, memory, PCI cards, and so on, while the plus 12 volt rail is responsible for the hard drives, optical drives, fans, CPU video cards, etc. Also, some might be interested to know the peak amps on each rail. Well, the plus 3.3 volt rail is 28 amps, and the plus 5 volt rail is 30 amps. Now, there are 4 plus 12 volt rails, and the plus 12 volt 1 and 2 are 20 amps each, plus 12 volt 3 and 4 are 30 amps each. The combined power, though, of all the plus 12 volt rails is 75 amps. There are a couple of important things to remember when selecting a power supply. The first is wattage. Determine how much wattage you are going to require by the amount of hardware you will be installing. Generally speaking, a medium to high-end gaming rig would require a 500 to 700 watt power supply. For a hardcore system, select a power supply that's around 800 watts. If, however, you are building an extreme gaming rig with a top-of-the-line multiple video card setup and lots of other hardware, get a power supply that's 1000 watts or greater. Second, it should be at or above 80% efficient at typical load. The efficiency of this power supply is rated above 80%. Third, it should meet the latest ATX and other current standards, environmental directives, overvoltage, undervoltage, and other protections. This power supply meets all current standards. Fourth, I'd recommend choosing a power supply that has APFC. APFC, or active power factor correction, is something that also assists the power supply in being more efficient and therefore stable under load. APFC basically reduces total harmonics, corrects input voltage, and it allows for full input voltage range. Thankfully, this power supply has APFC. Fifth, there are 3 main certifications, 80+, NVIDIA SLI, and ATI Crossfire. Many of today's high-end power supplies meet one or more of these certifications. This power supply meets the 80+ bronze certification. Sixth, look for a power supply that uses Japanese capacitors. This ensures a much more reliable product than a power supply with low-grade capacitors. Finally, get a power supply that has enough leads for your setup. Also consider a power supply that has a modular design because it reduces the cable mess inside the case. Now, unfortunately, this power supply does not have a modular design. Let's have a closer look at this power supply. Since this is a high wattage power supply, it's surprisingly short and will fit in all ATX cases. It has a matte black paint finish and the housing is steel. Here's the power cord connection and the power switch. They include a temperature-controlled, quiet, recessed 140mm fan. So the hotter it gets inside the power supply, the faster the fan spins. This fan and the honeycomb ventilation ensures maximum cooling, so the power supply should remain cool in almost any environment. This power supply has lots of leads, but they are all hardwired into the power supply. Modular leads would have been preferred, but thankfully they are sleeved, and this does reduce the cable mess inside the case. This not only looks great, but it also increases airflow inside the case. Finally, have a listen to the 140mm fan. If you're in the market for a high wattage power supply, but you need one to be short, then you should keep this product at the top of your list. There are very few high wattage power supplies that come in this very small dimension. Usually power supplies in this high wattage range are much longer. This power supply should fit in all ATX cases currently on the market. Now, while that's impressive and it does come with a very quiet 140 millimeter fan, the results were a little lower than expectations. But remember, the test setup that I have, it's fairly extreme. So considering that, this is a great product. Until next time, take care.